The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus told his disciples a parable. Can a blind person guide a blind person? Will not both fall into a pit? No disciple is superior to the teacher, but when fully trained, every disciple will be like his teacher. Why do you notice the splinter in your brother's eye, but do not perceive the wooden beam in your own? How can you say to your brother, "Brother, let me remove the splinter in your eye," when you do not even notice the wooden beam in your own eye? You hypocrite, remove the wooden beam from your eye first, then you will be able to see clearly to remove the splinter in your brother's eye. A good tree does not bear rotten fruit, nor does a rotten tree bear good fruit. For every tree is known by its own fruit. For people do not pick figs from thorn bushes, nor do they gather grapes from brambles. A good person out of the store of his goodness in his heart produces good, but an evil person out of a store of evil produces evil. For from the fullness of the heart, the mouth speaks. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Looking around, I think it's safe to say that I think most of us have been to an optometrist at one time or another. And we know that an eye exam usually begins with the instruction to recite the tiniest line that we can. And so, partly recognizing a few letters and guessing at the rest, we rattle off the line. And then the physician or the assistant adjusts the lens, and voila, crystal clarity. That experience always reminds me of the very first time I put on glasses. And I was simply amazed at how clear and bright and crisp around the world around me actually was. How's your vision? Are corrective lenses the only tool that we need to see with clarity? I guess that depends quite a bit on what you want or need to see. To avoid a traffic accident, or to find a lost coin, or to read a flame. Glasses and contact lenses will do the trick. But to see deeply, to see, for example, as the poet William Blake saw, quote, a world in a grain of sand, and heaven in a wildflower, end quote, requires much more than a microscope or a telescope. To see the hurt in a smiling face, the loneliness behind an act of pettiness, the fear behind a declaration of bravado, to see Christ in bread and wine, is to have the kind of vision that an optometrist simply cannot help you with. To have this kind of vision, we need to open our hearts, our minds, our eyes to the words, the ideas, the vision that Jesus places before us in what we call the Sermon on the Mount. Although in this Gospel of Luke, The same sermon takes place not on a mountain, but on a plain. Not from on high, but on level ground. Jesus speaks to us eye to eye, so to speak. But Jesus still sounds like an optometrist as he asks, why do you not notice the splinter and perceive the plank in your own eye, while claiming to see the splinter in another's eye? In this time of public discourse, when our social media posts have degenerated into belittling and name-calling, to distorting truth and bold-faced lies, it's so easy to blame and criticize, to take delight in clever, malicious speech. My God, what does that say about us? Really? What does it say about those who engage in that kind of speech when every tree is known by its fruit? And we know the fruit of anger is to stimulate even more anger. The fruit of hatred brings forth even more hatred. The fruit of lies leads two or even more people to fall into a pit. Our Holy Father, Pope Francis, right now we know he hovers between life and death. And we do not know if our prayers for healing will bring him healing in this life or healing in the life to come. But I think that many of us, with a little help, can remember the very first interview he gave after being elected Pope. And in that very first interview, the very first question put to him was, describe yourself. What do you want us to know about Pope Francis? And he replied with 4 brief words. I am a sinner. I am a sinner. No blames, no excuses, no rationalizations. He simply took responsibility for himself and acknowledged his faults, his weaknesses, his struggles. Wednesday is Ash Wednesday. Together, we enter this time of Lent, a time of conversion and renewal and grace. And Jesus' question about planks and splinters is about so much more than mere duplicity and double standards. And I could share my thoughts with you on what that so much more is. And if I did, you would say, nice insight, Father, and it would go in one ear and out the other. So I'm not going to do that. I want you to do it for yourself, because it'll mean much more to you if you think about it and pray about it and come to hear what Jesus is saying on a much deeper level with that pointed question. So for the next few days, as we prepare for Lent and for Ash Wednesday, I would ask that you really spend some time thinking and praying about that question that Jesus puts before us. Personalize it. Why do I notice the splinter in another's eye, but do not perceive the wooden beam in my own eye?